fire department now an emergency squad. The emergency squad as it stands today, the Owego Fire Department Emergency Squad, has their own bylaws that they follow, and you have to become a member of the fire department, and then you go to the squad and want to join the Owego Fire Department Emergency Squad. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking those words, fire department, and getting rid of them, because a fire department cannot bill. So they would join in the same way they currently are today. Those members of the Owego Fire Department Emergency Squad would just become members of the whatever emergency squad. What I mean by whatever is when we file paperwork for a corporation, they can become a Owego Emergency Squad number 6, because we used to have the Owego Engine Company 6. They could become the Owego Emergency Squad, whatever we deem that corporation to be called. The interlocking between the fire department and the squad still would exist with that type of membership. Here's your answer. There'd be a chair. There'd be a member at large. I wanted all the members of the squad to be represented. Right now I'm the chief, so I'm the president of the board of the fire department of the Village of Owego Incorporated. With this, I want a member of the squad that's not in a ranking position to be the chair of the board. Then you have the squad captain underneath the chair of this board. The secretary, obviously treasurer, and then the member would be the fire chief. Again, that would get village representation onto this board, making decisions. Yes, sir.
So your non-for-profit thinking in your business plan is that you'd be able to have the ability to apply for grants? Was there any thinking doing that or no?
The fire department is applying for the 501c3. This would be a subsidiary underneath the fire department. So when you're a 501c3, your background is finance, you can apply for more grants and you can get more funding by doing that.
We're saying the same thing, but with that theory, would you blend any possible grants into the funding to keep paying for that service?
If they're available, absolutely.
Okay.
If most grants are derived towards EMS personnel.
No, I get it.
Like the SAFER grant is more driven towards firefighters,
Yep.
but as firefighters, they can also be EMTs. We've applied for the SAFER grant, and we've never gotten it. Johnson City's gotten it, Bampton's gotten it, but they have paid staff already that exists, so I think that's why they're a better avenue for those types of grants. But if they're available, then yes, we would pursue those.
We can talk, I just,
Does this answer the question of the makeup of the board?
Yep.
yeah.
So here's our picture of how things would work, is you have the squad that would be, you'd have the Village of Owego, you'd have the corporation as a standalone entity over here, but there'd be a contract that goes between the Village of Owego and this new corporation saying, we want your services for the Village of Owego. The village board would have to say this is who we want to provide these services. The corporation of the FDVO would still be the parent company of the emergency squad, but there'd be their own contract between the emergency services, emergency squad, and the village. That way the fire department corporation is not involved with that contract. There's some gray area in there as if it's legal for the corporation, even though it's not directly involved with providing a service, if it's legal or not. So there would be a contract between the Village of Owego or agreement and the emergency squad saying, we want your service. And then the revenue again would come from third-party payers, that's per people that we're servicing. Just rough numbers of the budget line. Like I said, we just put in a 6%. Working through the numbers today, the exact proposal would be a 5.5%. But if things change, and this is all derivative from call volume too. This is what we project today, but as we build more things like senior housing, like Owego Gardens is going to build another building, we're seeing our call volume go up. when we lost the town of Owego contract, or we just didn't renew it, I guess is a better way to say it, we lost approximately 400 calls. But we're drastically bringing those 400 calls back by the growth of the village and then the way we're going with the village and housing. And we're over at 130 Southside Drive at least a couple times a week. When they build the other building, we'll be over there even more. So the positives of bringing in housing, and especially housing of that type, brings on more expenditures for the emergency squad. We do go over there for fire alarms occasionally, but 90% of the time we're over there is for EMS related calls. So when you look at the current fire department budget, more and more gas and fuel and resources are being spent because we're developing more properties to where the people that are dwelling in those properties need more care. They call the ambulance more, they slip and they fall more, they have more health issues. We're not building buildings to where 20 and 30-year-old people are moving into them. We're building buildings where 50 plus are moving into them. As we get older, we have healthcare issues. So our emergency squad is going over there more. So I anticipate when Owego Gardens does their next project, our call volume is going to go up even more, making up that deficit. When we have more calls, more revenue will come in because we're billing them.
I guess the only comment I have on that is the Owego Gardens too, just for clarification, is the 20 to 30-year-old range, 50 plus range.
You sure about that? The last meeting I sat in, I had the question of, can we make going the first floor handicap accessible? Because right now there's 3 floors handicap accessible, and we have people that have serious health issues on the 3rd floor. And they told me that all the bathrooms and everything would be handicap accessible. 3 floors. The last time I was at a planning board meeting with them. And I haven't been invited back to the meeting, but the last meeting I sat in, they said there would be 3 floors of handicap accessibles. Because I have concerns with the Owego Gardens the way it is today, because we are constantly on the 3rd floor for a few people that have some serious health issues. And from the fire chief standpoint, after the fire, I'm not so sure they can ambulate and get out on their own. I have great concern with that. So I was told if they were only provided rooms on the 1st floor, then they can't do that because they're being biased towards them. So when I got brought into the planning board meeting about this new apartment building, that was my idea. Why don't we just make the 1st floor handicap accessible? Then the floors up from that are just normal rooms. If you are handicap bound to have a wheelchair, we just offer you the 1st floor because that's what we designed this building for. And they told me they can't do that. All 3 floors will be handicap accessible. I don't know, Mayor, if you've been, I haven't been invited back, so I don't know if they didn't like that, but I'm looking at it from a safety avenue. And safety not only for the people that reside there, but for my firefighters. If there's people on the 3rd floor that are stuck in there, we're going to do our best to get them out, but we're also putting people's lives in jeopardy. So, anyways, there would probably be some mixture of it. That's all I know.
Yeah, I think we'll get an extra. They pitched it as just in general as apartments that were basically.
Jeff, you were in that meeting. Was that pretty much what they said there at that meeting, though?
Yeah.
There's going to be 3 floors of handicap accessible?
There's actually going to be more than just that one big building.
There's going to be townhouses.
There's going to be townhouses.
Townhouses below it. But I'm just talking about the same replica building of what they already currently have. So as anything, my first take on this is I'm either going to be the fire chief to fix the EMS issue to where we're moving in a positive direction, or you always could start something new that fails, and then you have the then what's, and then you're known as the fire chief that failed the village of Owego and the emergency squad. So we take the risk assessments. And when we look at this, there's liability that the village now has versus the corporation would now take on. There is volunteers leaving. Like I said, I went with this PowerPoint that you're seeing tonight to the membership of the squad and said, do you support this? Because if they're not coming out of their houses as volunteers and we have to hire additional medics and drivers to cover the calls, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. Guthrie Ambulance was here in the mid-90s, 92, 93 era. I was very young when they were here, but they failed. Greater Valley came in, and Greater Valley just didn't service the village of Owego. They were stationed at the public safety building, and if any ambulance didn't crew up, they were the next ambulance en route to go handle that call, so they just weren't handling village of Owego calls. They didn't make revenue to be here. They left. Berkshire Ambulance failed, which then they tried to become Northern Tioga, changing the name, changing makeup. They didn't succeed. So there's been a lot of different EMS billing companies that have come into Tioga County that have failed. Again, if they don't have the support of the membership and the membership is coming free, then it's not going to work. So we need to make sure we keep our volunteers happy. Another risk is we know our donations are going to drop. People are quite generous and they do give us pretty good donations, but not everybody, and they're not enough to cover the cost of the ambulance ride. We would have to hire more business staff or find inside resources to do our business and make sure that we are billing appropriately, checking over PCRs, making sure everything's logged in as it needs to be for billing, training our people to, like squad drivers, they got to write down their mileage. Now we get in, turn the key, put it in drive, go out, service the call. The squad driver is going to have to get in the ambulance, write down the mileage of when they start, when they get there, and so forth. So the training has to come out of this, and that sometimes costs money. I've already discussed a lot of the upsides to it, and like I said, as call volumes go up, more revenue would come in, and that would change the makeup of the budget. Next, Mayor. It's just more of a breakdown of the differences between risk and assessment. Is the biggest thing that I focused on throughout this whole thing is the volunteers. Making the volunteers happy. 95% of the time when you see the ambulance out on the street, there's volunteers in it. They're giving up their time at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and so forth, to service the calls. They're not paid. Next. Cost of the facilities is what I already talked about. The village board have to agree to. The cost, I think, is something we can work out, but we'll have to talk to the fire commissioner, and I have a new fire commissioner, and I think we'll get back to the village board on that. Next. It's just a little bit of names, what do we call ourselves, once we move forward and we actually file for the corporation paperwork. These are just ideas that we've thrown out there. We'd actually have to pick a name and go with it. Covered all that. Next. Does anybody have any questions on it? The biggest thing is we have to do something. I don't think anybody here, including myself, and I own a few different properties in the village of Owego, want a 5.5% increase. And if we do nothing with that avenue, and we don't want to raise village taxpayers, then we have to just hope that, like, our squad captain will leave his work at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for a heart call. Or one of our retirees will be around. We have a 78-year-old man that runs most of our Code 2 or Code 3 calls during the day. But he also loves to go on his river house. He retired for a reason, not for the village of Owego. He retired so he can go enjoy his life. But he feels that he needs to be here. And today we had a Code 3 call, and that gentleman was on that rig, still with a heart attack at 78 years old, running the call because we quite often have 3 calls during the day, and both our medics will be tied up. So when he goes away and I shoo him out of the station and tell him to go enjoy your retirement leave, we want to make sure that there's somebody there to replace him. And if we do nothing, then I can't tell you as a fire chief that we're going to be able to cover our calls during the day. Yes, sir.
When you bill the individual,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
The individual then turns that to the insurance company.
Correct.
And there's a difference.
The insurance companies
insurance
sometimes
pays.
don't pay what we ask.
Right,
But,
absolutely.
and that's in the budget module, is we understand that. We've gone around to Cantor EMS that has a very successful emergency squad. They are pretty much the way this is set up. They're volunteers with one paid guy during the day. They don't have nearly as many calls as we do, but we provide ALS assistance to them all the time, advanced life care. So they are billing for that ambulance, they're billing for that crew that's on there, but when they stop at our station and pick up our heart tech, no one's getting a bill for our heart tech to be on that ambulance. They're collecting revenue because they're a non-for-profit ambulance service. They're billing that patient for care, but not for our heart tech that's on there providing the advanced care that they need because we're a volunteer service. So in addition, that patient would get a heart tech bill from us. They'd get their Cantor bill and then get a bill from us. That patient would then, yes, turn into their insurance. If the insurance pays 50% of that, awesome. It's better than nothing right now.
So are you saying, Danny, that in that scenario, we would be getting paid for the expertise that we're loaning out to a sister service or a neighboring service?
Correct. Well, you wouldn't be getting paid.
Well, not
Well,
me,
the
but
corporation would
the
be.
corporation, yes.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Right. So, go ahead, Mark.
So first, I'd like to make a comment. I want my comment to be heard by the representatives in this direction. You have to do this. All right? So I've been in emergency services for 42 years, 32 of them in the village of Owego. This has been a slow grind to find a solution. Being a municipal emergency services department such as the village is, we have almost none, maybe very limited options to successfully provide services in the depressed economic environment in which we are in. And the future holds no promise in that direction. And what the chief and his staff have figured out is a way, really a reorganization it sounds like, to save the emergency squad. And I think the original concern was, how do we pay for 2 paid medics when the sweet dollars run out? But I think what I'm hearing is a solution, not just for saving the medics, but saving all of VMS.
Correct.
Right. So my comment is really for the village board is, you have to pursue this. All right? Because if you don't, I think the chief is being very graceful, explaining possible negative outcomes. And that was in my question, was buried in there, Chief, which was really what you're proposing here is long-term sufficiency for the emergency services.
Correct.
Okay.
To follow up with Mark's statement is, that's what I meant by there's dollars assigned to replacing the ambulances. Right now, the village board assigned $16,000. That's not enough. It's enough over time, but we've got roughly $32,000 in an account. When we talked the last village board meeting, it's going to cost $200,000 to buy a new one. That's the long-term goal, is that we can build ourselves up, sustain ourselves with very minimum village board cooperation. And the cooperation we're looking for is stuff and services that you're already providing, and you'll have to continually provide to the fire department.
And the model you're describing is best practices. You know, Chief he's again being very graceful here, telling you that they like to do this and some of the surrounding communities have been successful. This is nationally successful as a method through soft building. The fact that we have not acted on it sooner, just, I don't understand. So please act on this.
Yes, sir.
A few questions. All right. So dollars and cents. That's what I want to talk about. So, I mean, I like the idea. You and I have talked about this before. I agree. I think it's neat. I think it's good. the only way to give you self-sufficiency. So I'm just looking here now at the last tentative budget. And so your last tentative budget, it's about $475,000 for the fire department. EMS full-time is about $90K of that. And other than that, there's some FICA and other stuff in here, but the sweep fund's been hit every year for anywhere from like 100 to like 150 roughly a year.
This year, right now, it's gonna be hit 157,
Yeah.
157,000.
But it's been as low in the last few years as 100, or has it been as low as 130, or?
You have a lot of different factors go into that. When we were looking at the numbers, I was looking at the numbers at the village is benefits. Throughout the years, we've had several EMTs that we've had on our payroll that haven't required benefits.
Yeah.
They've gotten it through a spouse, through the VA. We had one long-term provider for us until he retired that got his benefits through the VA, so we didn't have any health care expenditures.
So some years we didn't have 150K. that we
Yeah,
used.
like, just for instance, FICA, as you brought up, is $8,133.
Yeah.
Our healthcare policy for both medics is $44,846. So that's why there's a difference in range of what it costs. And for 1 year, we went 6 months with one medic, I believe.
So my question to you then is, what do you anticipate revenue-wise? Once again, this is all in theory right now. We're all talking about a proposal. But what kind of projections do you have for a full year equivalent of doing this? Maybe not out of the gate, but maybe after the first year.
So when you look at budgeting of money, it normally takes about 3 months for any type of income to start coming in. And that can be small amounts start rolling in from your billing. Overall, money-wise, I think goes up there around 300 is your total revenue of a year's worth that comes in. Is that what you're asking?
You're saying total revenue for the fire department as a whole?
No, that'd be for the EMS with all our expenditures coming in. There'll be a $30,000 deficit, roughly, as our current projection model that we need to make up for.
I got you. So you're basically saying you go to a model where you're going to be asking the village for a subsidy of about 30K a year.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. Which, to anyone like we're talking about with this sweet fund, 30K a year is a lot less than what we've had that sweet fund for years past.
Now,
Chief, you were asking for about 30K in kind.
yes,
You're already providing that,
Yeah.
right? So that really doesn't change. The numbers get shown somewhere else on the spreadsheet, but you're already providing that, and you are going to have to provide that.
Exactly.
furthermore, to follow up on that, our budget for fuel is broken up to $10,000 for fire apparatus and $20,000 for EMS fuel. So as revenue starts coming in and if we get more than we projected, which we lowballed this pretty good to make sure that we had a budget that would work in worst case scenarios, that line item would be deleted out of the village budget because we wouldn't have to provide it.
So there's my question. Of the line items that are currently in our fire department budget, EMS-related line items, how much of that are we going to be offloading, I guess I want to say, from the fire department budget currently into this nonprofit corporation?
My hope is at $20,000 initially, but as I spoke gracefully, I'd like to keep that fuel budget in there until our revenue starts coming and we get set. But I anticipate that $20,000 being deleted out of there, and that would be a cost savings to the village if that's doable. Because that would be lowering my overall budget of a service that you're not providing somewhere else, I guess is what I'm getting at.
So are you saying basically then, in theory, you're going from like a 475K budget down to a 455K?
Correct, and then there's a few additional things in that budget, is we're also taxing the taxpayers currently for the last 3 years for $16,000 for an ambulance replacement. That would be null and void.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to do any more because in our budget line, we're buying ambulances. And once the corporation starts buying their own ambulances, you, as the village of Owego, wouldn't have to in-kind service lease us your current ambulance that we currently have in service.
Bingo.
And furthermore, when we're buying these ambulances on a 5-year rotation like we would like, our maintenance costs would go down drastically, so we wouldn't have to use that shared service from the village as a mechanic. So as this ball starts rolling,
Gotcha.
I'm hoping the village fire department budget starts slowly going downhill.
I think you're really gonna take off $157,000. That's,
That would be the payroll part that comes
right,
out.
that's gotta come out of the budget.
Right, but right now it's not, maybe I'm wrong, but right now it's not anything that taxpayers are paying for. I think what you're looking for is what the taxpayer is paying for, right?
That's deceptive in your budget.
Well, I know,
Because you
that's-
always show the sweep dollars in the budget line as if it's village taxable money. It's not.
Right, but when the sweep money goes away,
Right.
which is gonna be in August, if you're gonna start with this project, you're gonna take $157,000 from the budget. You're gonna recoup that money by what you're billing, correct?
Right, but I think what the trustee's asking is, what are we taking out of the budget that's actual physical tax dollars that taxpayers are paying for, right?
That's right.
Yes.
That's what I think the trust, and I'm trying to answer the
Right,
trustee.
and I think there's other money, Chief, that you're not even, sharing with them, which is how much money is the squad spending right now to buy medical supplies and such that they're paying for with donations without using any taxes money, right?
It's
So
considerable
they've
amount.
been doing this for a long time.
There's no opposition, we're just, I can't, I expect.
Yeah, I don't have any opposition to it, I just want to understand the numbers of it.
Well, let's cut to the chase. Is this the best thing?
It's the
for the
best,
village?
it's the best solution.
I want to move forward, and, I mean, the attorney, I know he has just questions, cross the line, cross Ts and dotted Is. But I think this is the best thing. You've done your research, I've heard it, even on a personal level. This got to be done.
You got a lot of work ahead of you. You're gonna run into some sticky widgets when you start talking contracts and not-for-profit law. Right, there's a lot of work to be done. I just wanna make sure that when you make decisions in the future regarding this issue, that you're making decisions to go forward and not get the squad or the fire department mired down again with a we can't do this attitude.
Right. I totally agree with that.
You're right though, on that account, we are definitely gonna have expenses in terms of negotiating the contract. Our legal expenses we're gonna have some in relation to this project, but I agree, we still gotta go forward. Rusty, I see you back there, how about Rusty?
Yes, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, I'm on your side of this, and I believe that, and so this isn't an argument, I don't want a big discussion on this. The chief's number about how much this is gonna raise our taxes are way low, 5.6%. If we don't do something like this, it's gonna raise our taxes considerably more than that. If it was $157,000 for the guys at 20,000 per percent, that's 8%. It's gonna be way more than your number, which is, I say, I'm on your side. That's undoable for us. It will be significant. You understand?
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm good.
My question is, the billing, how is that going to be handled? Will the village be responsible for billing the insurance companies? Or
No,
will that
we would
go
hire a,
straight through the corporation?
yeah, the corporation would hire a billing service to take care of it. We would have to check internally to make sure all the proper stuff is in the PCR, the patient reporting system, and then the billing, third-party billing service would take that data and actually do the billing.
That's where they mentioned the 501.
Yes, sir.
Is that how Candor does it?
Is that how, does Cantor use a third-party billing service? I believe so. Paul?
They go back and forth. I think currently they have a part-time office gal that does their billing for them. It depends if they can find a qualified individual that's semi-retired to do that work for them at that time.
With our call volume, I strongly suggested to the board or the squad that we don't put this burden on ourselves. let somebody else worry about it, and let somebody else take the responsibilities of collecting the money and the legalities with that. Our staff is tapped out enough to answer the calls, and that's where I want their focus to be. And in our model, we can afford a third-party billing service. So as long as that works, I don't want to put any more stress on our staff. If that answers your question.
So I guess, Chief, what are you looking for from the board as far as, I don't think there's really a motion, but I think we all support what you're pitching here.
So the next step for us is to make sure that the attorney and the board's okay with this model, is the squad would actually go forth and picking a name and making a corporation underneath the fire department of the village of Owego. Theoretically, we could do this without the board support, but that's not the way we want to do business. We want to do business with input from the village residents and the board.
Nate, is there something that is required, or is there something that you would suggest from the board in terms of an action tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we all probably understand, has been kind of mentioned, right? There's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot to get through to where we need to be. You know, the nonprofit corporation needs set up. My understanding is the certificate of need to even provide ambulance service needs to get transferred. There's a lot of things that need to get done, but it's nothing for the board to act on tonight other than perhaps a motion just expressing support for this concept and, you know, moving forward with the process, just so that way they can kind of go back to the squad and say, hey, nothing's set in stone, but the board has expressed, you know, interest in moving forward with this.
Is that sufficient enough for your membership tonight? Is our
Absolutely,
support-
because then the squad will start using the money that they
Well,
have
with that, I'd like to make a
expenditures
motion to move
to
forward
make
with
that
that.
corporation.
I'm sorry, Dan, I couldn't hear you. What was that?
Yeah, so the squad, when they get the no support, that motion of support, they will, at their next business meeting, I would assume, will start the formation process. They're spending the money to make their own corporation.
And then Chief, just one thing, I know when you and I had talked previously, one of the things I wondered or thought would be helpful to show the board at all, and I don't know if you and Pinsky were able to put something together, but just like maybe a timeline as to, okay, here's how we're planning on moving forward so that by, you know, August or whenever we're targeting here, we can actually kind of hit that date.
Yes, we can, I asked Pinsky what the, that's Pinsky Law Firm is who the Fire Department Corporation has as an attorney. And he's working on that timeline, and he just echoed what you said about tonight's meeting. Then the squad has to do the majority of the legwork. The next time I think the village board would have to take action is when they draw up the finalized contract of between, or agreement of service between the village and all the extras, kind of service, I guess is what we're calling it, to the squad.
So certainly one of the things is, I know every board member's probably thinking, right, is the impact on the budget exactly. And I know if we could, when does the budget get adopted again? Because I imagine for planning purposes. Yeah. So if we could get even numbers for the board to be able to really like take a pencil and start working through it, because they're gonna have to budget to some extent to even to pay for the contract.
I'll get with the squad over the weekend in the next few weeks, and I'll email to all the trustees.
Yeah, because obviously when this is a major change for you, so your budget, your department budget may obviously differ,
Absolutely.
things will change.
Absolutely.
Hey, email me this week, yeah?
Sure can.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. You good?
So is there a second on the motion to support the,
Yeah, I'll second.
and then all in favor?
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. So, next we'll do the official newspaper of record. I know there's been some discussion of that. Someone get a here for that.
So, Mayor, one thing, when we were at the last paid circulation, like people pay to subscribe to it? Okay, because there's requirements to meet the definition of newspaper. Not everything's a newspaper, right? And you have to have a paid circulation, and it has to be at least published once a week, and a couple other things. And I couldn't remember if this was the Courier or the Penny Saver. It was the Penny Saver.
The Penny Saver is our local.
But it's Courier, then that'll be okay. So then we had the question of, what about having two official newspapers? And if you have two official newspapers, then you do need to publish in both newspapers. However, if you have to take action kind of in a timely fashion, actually, let me say it's over. You can have one official newspaper and then one supplemental paper, which you use if you can't make the publishing deadlines for your official newspaper. You have to publish in both official newspapers if you can, but if there's only one and then a supplemental, and then the official newspaper, you can't make their filing deadline like the Courier, they only publish once a week and they're a little more limited. You can use your supplemental paper to kind of fill in the gap, and that's where it would be helpful to have the Press and Sun as your supplemental paper in case you can't make the print deadlines for the Courier.
So, can I ask a question then? So you're saying in the scenario where we're on a time crunch, if we had Press and Sun as supplemental, which currently we voted as Press and Sun, it's current. If we made that supplemental and we weren't under a time crunch, we could then just use just that one in that scenario and be good.
Right, and the reason for that is you just physically can't make the official newspaper filing deadline.
At least the way I read the big book was you have to mail it to the other one or inform them somehow.
Yeah.
They may not get it in the paper may not come out with that in it ever.
How many times have we missed a crunch in the past?
Well, it's not so much that we missed a crunch, it's that we couldn't do something or we couldn't take an action because of a deadline.
How many times has that happened?
Since I've been on,
Yeah.
once I know of, maybe one more.
Boom. So I think we should go with the Courier. I don't see the Press and Sun bulletin here.